Hey everyone, it's Ecepta again. I am back with another tutorial video. This time it's about my latest track called Sanctuary. And yeah, it's a bit more of a typical Future Garage song, so I hope you'll like it. I'll just play a little section in case you haven't heard it yet. So let's go from top to bottom again, starting with the drums. So this kick is pretty basic, it's a pretty simple sub kick. It doesn't have much of a transient, and it is from Blur's ambient sample pack. It's kick number 3, and I really like this kick. I used it in 3 recent tracks so far, I think. It just, for some reason, it really fits in a lot of different contexts for these softer tunes. It doesn't grab too much attention, but it also fits really well in a lot of context. So yeah, I'm playing this basic rhythm. I try to have a bit of variation so that the drum rhythm kind of changes up and isn't like a 1 bar loop all the time. And yeah, I think that really worked. So then for the second drop, the kick pattern is a bit more like rhythm dubstep inspired, you could say. And that's because there is a kick on the 1 and also on the 3, so the place where the snare would sit. So instead of like kick, clap, you have kick and then a kick and a clap at the same time. And this kick is a bit different. I changed the pitch and length a little bit as well as the processing. So that's kind of the interaction between those two kicks. And then at the end of the first 16 bars of both drops, there's this little weird kick fill. I'm not sure why I did that. I just thought it worked. It sounds kind of cool. So then let's look at the rim shot. It's kind of a weird percussion rim shot. It's made from these samples. That one and this one. And layered together, it sounds like that with a bit of processing. And some pitch shifting as well. So yeah, I really like that sound. At first I tried to make this song with a clap here, but for some reason it was really difficult to get the mix down right and make it sound interesting. So I thought maybe if I have like a cool percussion kind of sound instead of that whole clap, it might be a bit more interesting, and I thought this one worked. And then in the second 16 bars of the drop, there are a bunch of more layers added to that, because that was originally the original clap. I tried to add layers to make it work, and it got really complex, and it still didn't really work. So that's when I decided to have this rim shot here. But in the second 16 and also in the second drop, it did work to layer that clap to that rim shot. So that's why it's in here, and that's also why there are a lot of layers. So that sound is this. Just a bunch of Foley sounds and percussive sounds and a rim shot as well. So that's the clap, and then with the percussion rim, it sounds like that. So then another challenge was the hi-hats. I tried a bunch of things and it didn't work, so I have these folders where I once just tried to make a bunch of percussion loops. This is what they sound like. And I rendered out the stems of those, and so that I could just throw them in a project whenever I felt like it. So that's what I did here. I just put in 3 stems, and it sounds like that. And then something that I like to do is have these kind of trill hats glitches, something you hear a lot in trap, the very fast hi-hats, but I like to do that with a kind of Foley percussion type sound, and it adds a lot to the perceived complexity of the drum section. Yeah, just add some interest, add some kind of cool ear candy. Which is also what these 2 sounds are doing. It's just some Foley. And then I added some more percussion loops. Now that I listen back to it, it might be a bit messy, but because there are different amounts of swing, but yeah, it kind of works, so it's fine, I guess. And these samples are from my first sample pack, I believe. Yeah, and first one is a drum loop from my track called I Care, and the other one is from Horizon. And then this is a trick I like to do. It's volume automating vinyl samples. Gives a bit more of a pumping feel to the whole drum section. And I did something similar here with texture sound. And I just added some more volume automation here to have that second drop very really give that a pumping feel, and this also feels like it's sidechained a lot. Yeah, there's just a lot of Foley here, and I really like that sound. So that's the drum section. Then we can go to the basses. This main bass is pretty simple. It's just a sine wave that's playing the sub, and then a saw wave that has the fundamental removed. So you do that by clicking on process and then remove fundamental. And then in brackets behind it, there's HPF, which stands for high pass filter. And then, so here's the saw wave, and that has some unison going on. And the whole patch has a low pass filter, so it's just a basic Reese bass, but the fundamental is a clear sine wave. Then I have an automation on the filter position, the cutoff, so that it gets a bit more growly and intense during the second drop. And also in the breakdown it's still playing, but it has a high pass filter and the volume is turned down. So then a cool thing about this track is the little bass fills. So how I made those was for this one, that's just a serum, and it's playing a square wave that is FM'd by a saw wave, and there's a bandpass filter automation which gives it that rhythm. Then there's some multiband compressing. Then it sounds like that. And then there's a very steep low pass, which gives it that filtered characteristic, and some distortion and a reverb automation, which is pretty important for the whole sound. It also cuts off here. And then the second time you hear it, there's some more pitch movement going on. And then this bass is pretty interesting. That is a sample from a sample pack. Sounds like that. And I reversed it, I stretched it a lot, and I made a couple different instances of the sample with different stretch amounts, different pitch shifting amounts. Just some samples are 1 octave higher than the others, and it has like weird stretch modes that you have in FL Studio, and that really gives it that character. Then I cut between different samples with different settings to give it a bit more movement and make it play a bit more of a pattern. And then there's some basic neuro bass filtering with like a low pass filter and a notch filter, and some compression, distortion, and stuff like that. So that's how I made that bass. Then we can go to synths, instruments, and pads. So this pad is actually also from the Blur sample pack. The sample is called Moving Images, and this sound is actually the sound that the whole track started from. So I really like this vibe, and as you can hear here, there's like a really reverbed, blurred out vocal sample, and it's kind of almost out of tune, and that gives a lot more vibe, and I really like that sound. So I pitched this sample up, I think 3 semitones, and then gave it some more processing, and now it sounds like this. And that's kind of the whole basis for the whole track. Then I added a little piano melody, which is I think this was the Labs soft piano, and I layered the Rhodes from Addictive Keys underneath it. Then I recorded it, reversed it, and pitched it up 1 octave, and that has a bit of a swell, and it's kind of a transition effect. And added some more ambiences. These are not that special, they don't add too much to the whole track. Then in the second part of the drop, as soon as those claps come in, there's this lead melody, which is like a basic serum patch and a lot of reverb. And for the breakdown, there's this reversed piano playing a high-pitched melody, add some texture on top of everything. And then there's also this plug sound. Which is kind of saw waves with a very steep resonant bandpass filter, which is key tracked so that it goes alongside with what notes it's playing, and just some basic processing. And this kind of dictates the new chord progression for the breakdown. And I really like that because this whole part until that point is pretty straightforward. And then the breakdown goes kind of in a different direction. It plays a different chord progression, and there are some new textures on top of everything. One of which is these bells. Which came from this sample. And then there's also this kalimba melody. We also have this sound for the intro, which is introducing the chord progression in the lower register, and then in the higher register it's playing the lead melody that you later hear in the drops. So that's a cool kind of introduction of both those elements. And the kalimba has a reversed kind of sound as well, just like the piano has here. And there's some more stems. So the reason why these sounds are stemmed is because at some point when a project file gets a bit intense and a bit bigger, I struggle to keep being productive. I just kind of end up playing the thing over and over again and changing some levels and soloing out some instruments, and it's harder for me to add new sounds. But when I feel like it does need new sounds, I just render out the master and go to a new empty project file and just add a bunch of sounds, and then make stems out of those and put them back in this project and just do some final mixing. So yeah, that's all the synths, pads, and atmospheres. Now we can go to the vocal. As a kind of fill thing at the end of each section there's this vocal sample introducing like a new part. The sample came from this. Then there's also, I believe, this one. I put that in the Mangle, this granular plugin, and that does this. So that's a nice kind of ambience. And then I blurred that so that it's kind of like one big ambience, and added some sidechain to contribute to that pumping feel of the second drop. So then for the effects, there's some it's kind of interesting. I really try to get these effects to work with the arrangement so that it kind of contributes to the way you feel the different parts of the track. So this is a basic pre-drop rumble sound. Not sure what that came from, yeah. Pretty simple. And then during the whole track there's this soft vinyl crackle playing, it's really quiet. And during the breakdowns there's a bit of a louder one. And just turn up the whole FX group so that it's a bit easier to hear. And there's some raining in the intro. And because this whole part, the first part of the track, is pretty straightforward, and I wanted this breakdown to feel a bit more different, a bit more textured in a different, more colorful way, I just added a few cool different type of textures. So here's like rainforest birds and some bubbles. And these wind chimes, I really like those. And then to contrast that, because all those sounds are kind of light and have like a more positive vibe, I just added some thunder, so that it kind of makes sure you feel like we're not there yet. Because in the outro, all the darker sounds, so the rain and this dark texture, all that goes away, and the thunder as well. And then you have different birds and some vinyl samples and another different wind chime. That's a bit more optimistic. And yeah. So then the last sound I wanted to talk about is this glitch thing. Whoa. Just some random glitchy Foley stuff reversed with pitch automation so that it goes down. And there's some other Foley layer to that. And I have two variations of that for both drops. And that's something that I really like to do. It's also in Euphoria, in the last video I made. It's pretty cool. Sounds like that. It really adds to the feeling of like something new is coming. So yeah, that's basically the whole track.